Well, you can hear me at least. I can't hear a thing, but you can hear me, which is always good to know. I'd like to start by saying what a privilege it is to come and join the Schools and Academies Show and have the opportunity to talk about our regional improvement for standards and excellence work. As you saw in the introduction, I'm John Edwards. I'm the Director General for the Regions Group in the Department for Education. And in my team, I have the 9 regional directors who work right across the country, overseeing both RISE and our activities here and our wider activities from the department through education improvement and also work with children's social care, special educational needs improvement for local authorities. So that's our role and it's a real pleasure to be here. So over the past months, the Secretary of State has spoken powerfully about her own experiences with education, and how that's informing the department's commitment to the government's opportunity mission, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. What we're seeking to do is to break the link between young people's backgrounds and their future success. And for all those of you who work or volunteer within the school sector, I know that's exactly what you do as well. It's a commitment that I'm sure we all share. And today, I want to talk a bit about regional improvement for standards and excellence from a what is it we're trying to do, and from a how, to talk a little bit about the way in which we will be taking forward our work on RISE, as I will use the acronym now, if that's okay with everybody. And then there'll be time for some questions towards the end. So I thought I'd start with aims and objectives and the engagement with the sector. And in February, seems like a long time ago now, but we established our RISE teams. They're a mixture of civil servants who work in my teams across the regions of the department, and also external expert advisors. We often call them RISE advisors. And the aims and objectives of our work are here on the screen. I won't talk through them all, but ultimately the goal is to raise standards, of course, to break down those barriers to opportunity, as we've discussed, and ensure particularly that capacity and expertise from across the school system is shared, is used, and is brought together to deliver improvement. So we've got specific objectives within this. Schools are facing particular challenges to improve rapidly. We're underway, targeted intervention packages, working from 12 to 24 months. And where necessary, we secure support from a high-quality organisation. That might be a multi-academy trust, it might be a local authority, it might be a local authority-maintained school, wherever that capacity is. We secure that capacity from high-quality organisations and put that together to focus a package of support and improvement with the school and with the responsible body at the heart of it. Always at every stage working with the organisation, and I'll come to some more detail of how that works in a little. Our second objective, and I'm sure that all of us who work in school improvement have had this objective at all times, is to enable those who can navigate their own paths to improvement, which is the vast majority of schools, to be able readily to draw on local expertise, the very best of practice, and to be able to find their own route through improvement, but able to access and draw on the very best of support in the system. That might be coming from government-funded hubs, it might be coming from exemplary practice in individual schools and trusts, it might be coming from a local network that works closely on a particular topic area. But we want to make sure that that network, if you like, the whole piece of self-improvement is easy to navigate and that there is clarity over the very best of practice and how to get hold of it. So we'll be working across the area, region by region, to ensure that that capacity is readily accessible and clear to everybody. And then lastly, we want to make sure that for every part of the country, there is a coherent set of local priorities as well. And I'll say a little bit more about that when I talk about our national priorities for RISE in a second. So as I've said, our RISE teams are responsible for delivering targeted interventions in stuck schools and the universal service that lies there in our second half of our objectives. Let me go on and talk a little bit more detail about the RISE teams, because I know we get quite a lot of questions about this. So you can see on the left here, our RISE teams composed of civil servants and RISE advisors. We have per region 2 to 3 full-time equivalents, but they're not full-time people, they're seconded time coming into my teams, coming into our department that we can then deploy and use in the sector. And their team works collaboratively with local partners to promote a culture of sector-led improvement, as I said, using the expertise that exists locally. As I said, a targeted RISE intervention, a combination of a supporting organisation and a RISE school with its responsible body, and the universal service where we'll be drawing on the best information that's available to ensure that there is access to school improvement provision wherever it is. And as it says at the bottom, regional teams, our regional teams of the department will work with local authorities, with dioceses, metropolitan combined authorities where appropriate, to develop priorities for each local area to reflect the national priorities we have. So a key principle here is to bring skills from the sector and capacity to sector together to inform and enable us to have the right priorities and then the right capacity to address school improvement in wherever it's needed most for targeted RISE and across the system as a whole through our universal RISE. And so just to summarise that, we have a national team, we have our regional RISE teams, we're working closely with stakeholders, and we are building, drawing on sector capacity. And I think that summary slide, I hope, gives that sense of this being very much a process of drawing on the capacity in the sector through a national team framework to make sure we can achieve the most locally to improve those schools who need it most. So we need quite a lot from the sector, and our teams are engaging, first of all, with those schools that are receiving the targeted packages, so the RISE schools, reaching those targeted packages of improvement, as well as engaging with those leaders, be they multi-academy trusts, local authorities, wherever they may be, who have the capacity, have the expertise, and have particular areas in which they have demonstrated exemplary practice to make sure we can bring those who need it and those who can provide it together through the process of RISE. And obviously that universal service will be a particularly important place for us to draw on the best of practice and the best of capacity that exists in the system as a whole. So I hope that's a useful summary there. Now, what I want to go on is talk about how targeted intervention will work and give you a sense of the sort of structure, if you like, of how that works with individual schools. Because I know we've had quite a lot of questions. Well, what does it mean? We had a first phase of 30 or so schools who are in our first test and learn phase. And then we've moved on and have announced the names of a further, 170 or so schools, taking us through to around 200 in total. And there will be more schools to come. And I know that one of the key questions we get is, well, what will it mean for me? What would it feel like? What will that targeted intervention be as the experience for me, either as a recipient, as a RISE school, or as a provider, as a strong organisation who are becoming involved? And so my goal in the next few slides is just to unpack that a little bit to give you a sense of how that feels in operation. So let me start here with quite a colourful slide. It's unusual for the department, isn't it? Have nice colourful slides. But anyway, quite a colourful slide, taking you through the stages, and I hope this is useful, taking you through the stages of engagement with RISE schools, the process of identifying the support these schools need, creating a match, diagnosing and planning, moving through implementation, and all the way through to monitoring. And I thought I'd spend a little bit of time just talking about this to bring this to life. As you know, at this stage, the eligibility, so RISE schools that we're working with in our first phases are those that we're describing as stuck schools, those that have had that are eligible have been notified. Everybody knows which schools are eligible and come under that category. Happy to talk about that in more detail, but the goal is to identify those schools which are most in need of that rapid and sustainable school improvement and ensure that we're able to put that together for them. So the first stage, moving from eligibility, is into that initial diagnosis. Excuse me. So The initial diagnosis is where the RISE advisor and our RISE team assess the capacity to improve. Now, we're working at responsible body level there as well as with the school. If you're in an academy trust, we're working with the academy trust, a MAT or a single academy trust. For a local authority maintained school, that obviously includes the local authority as the responsible body for that school. And working to understand the current school improvement planning that's in place for that school and the capacity that's available within that responsible body, to deliver on that. We'll look at activities that are underway, and the RISE advisor will want to talk with school leaders and trust leaders or responsible body leaders about activities already underway. They'll want to look at the impact that they seem to be having, and they'll want to understand the extent to which that capacity is currently there that is needed in order to drive the rapid and sustained improvement, and that the school is improving. So in certain circumstances, we know that there will be a need at that point for significant additional capacity, and we'll take that route. There may be other schools that are eligible for RISE where we don't think there is a need for such significant capacity to be injected. And they might take, you see the arrow at the bottom, might take you straight to a process of reviewing progress without the need to identify a high quality organisation that can engage. But certainly for a good proportion of those RISE schools, we expect that we will be identifying a high quality organisation, as I said, a multi-academy trust, a local authority, school improvement service, a school partnership that has the capacity, the expertise and the particular specialisms to be able to provide capacity and support as that funded intervention. And so effectively, you move from the diagnosis, what are the current capacities in place and what are the issues we're trying to address, usually identified by Ofsted, but also by the responsible body itself, and then where does the capacity come from to be able to address that? And the high quality organisation will, in many cases, be needed in order to provide that additional capacity. We'll also consider whether that capacity needs to be funded, and we have the possibility of funding packages for schools to be able to progress. And it's a really important point and principle that the responsibility for that improvement remains with the responsible body, the trust or the local authority that's responsible for the school, and that the funding, if we agree that funding to fund a plan, is also funded to that school, that MAT, that responsible body. So that throughout, this is a package of additional support to intervene where it's needed to create better pace. It doesn't remove the responsibility for improvement from the current multi-academy trust or the current local authority who are responsible for that school. So a really important part of the process. And that improvement planning is absolutely a co-construction process between a RISE advisor, between a high quality organisation and between the responsible body for the school. And so very much aiming towards an agreed plan that utilises the capacity from the high quality organisation, leans into the diagnosis of the issues in the school, and then has some very clear targets for improvement and some sort of milestones and metrics along the way. And then we go into implementation and monitoring. School delivering the plan with the help of the supporting organisation, the high quality organisation, with the RISE advisor remaining in a role engaging to ensure that delivery is taking place and is active, and responsibility throughout for delivery remaining with the responsible body itself. So I hope that slide, we've certainly found in other talks we've done, with that slide has been very helpful, I think, for people to see the sequence of the process. And I did just want to pull out some examples as well, because I know, what could it mean for my school or what could it mean for my context has been really important. And what you can see here, I mean, these are not three categories, just to be really clear. They're just exemplars on a spectrum, of course. But there might be schools that are already on their way towards the sort of good outcomes that they're looking for, the good achievement they're looking for, the good quality that they're looking for. And in those, we might, as I said on the previous slide, identify that no match is required with a supporting organisation. Equally, we might have some schools where there are some very specific areas of improvement needed, and a match to a particular type of capacity or support, perhaps an English hub or a maths hub or whatever it might be. Something very specific and targeted is required. and that additional school improvement support is quite direct, doesn't need a high quality organisation putting it all together. It's just a very specific piece of support that can help. And then the plan is implemented over the next year or two. And then there are those schools that are much more in the early days of improvement, and where more substantial school improvement capacity is needed. And for those, we will absolutely be identifying that. SO is an acronym for supporting organisation, that high quality organisation, who will then provide the leadership of the support under the plan that's been agreed, and then go into implementation over 12 to 24 months. Now, these are not three categories or tiers, if you like. They're three illustrations of where we might be on a continuum. And as we're going through the first 30 schools that we've engaged with, we're seeing a mix. We're seeing a mix of schools, some that are really well on the way of the improvement journey, and our RISE advisor will stay close and stay engaged, but no match is required. Those where there's something really specific and targeted that is being provided, and then those where a larger support package is needed with a really strong school improvement provider or school improvement organisation engaged to lead that package. So I hope that shows the kind of sensitivity to the circumstances. Ultimately, the drive for the rising standards is absolutely the heart of it, making sure we break down those barriers. But I also wanted to show that we're very conscious of needing to put them in context for where individual schools are at any given time. So that's our targeted work. And then I did just want to spend a couple of minutes talking about our universal service for RISE as well. So you might be aware that back in the middle of March, the Secretary of State announced the 4 lead priorities for our universal service, so 4 areas that will be a particular focus for us in the early part of this work. We began those with attendance. Did any of you attend any of our attendance conferences back in the last term? Did anybody go? You obviously couldn't get tickets. They were all sold out. So, well, sold out. They were free. They were all whatever the unpaid version of sold out is. But those attendance conferences went really well. And that's not me saying that as the person responsible for delivering them. That's what the delegates said, and really enjoyed attending them, particularly the opportunity in those conferences to hear from great practitioners, from those people who have been working on some of the key challenges of attendance and have been finding some solutions locally. So that was attendance, which is our first, and you can see in the middle here of the bar the other priorities we're working on next. We've got reception year quality, based on recognising the absolute central importance of the best start in life. You might have heard our Secretary of State talking in the media about ensuring pupils get the best start in life, and as part of that, reception year quality as a focus for our Universal RISE service is particularly important, and we're very much looking forward to a focus on that this term. Some of the invitations have already gone out for some of our reception year quality conferences that are coming up in late June and July. There's a tiering of the invite, so there might be still to come, and there'll be places available. Capacity might be a little bit tight. There's a lot of primary schools, but hopefully we can provide real opportunities for people to come together in that way. And then further down the line, we'll be focusing on attainment, particularly in English and maths, and on mainstream inclusion, something which is obviously such an important topic for all of us in the education system at the moment. So part of our universal offer is to make sure that we drive those priorities in our, whether it be a conference, whether it be as bringing networks together, whether it be through our hubs, those centres of excellence that we fund, and making sure that everybody can access that support and capacity in the best way they can. So signposting to support, fostering an open culture of sharing, and I'll say a word or two about that at the very end. And then this convening and empowering local partners is particularly important. And then the last bit I just wanted to mention at the bottom about national priorities and the way in which we operate those on a regional basis as well. So particularly important for us, I think, to make sure that our universal offer reflects local nuances. In one region, perhaps, I was talking to one of my regional directors the other day, and she was saying, you know, in our region, that the attendance data analysis really points at authorised absence as being particularly prevalent in certain year groups. Another regional director was talking about the fact that their data actually points in a very different direction. It points to different sorts of patterns of absence, higher numbers of unauthorised absence, etc. And so what we want to make sure is that if there are those local nuances, of course, looking at regional level, it will drill down into individual schools. But looking at regional level, where is it most important for us to lean that universal offer into the needs of the system? So we're certainly hoping that we've got the national priorities, but we can deliver them regionally with a focus on what matters most in those areas. So I hope that that has been useful. I had a couple more slides on the universal, but there's an inexorable clock ticking down in front of me down here, which is telling me that I'm running out of time. So I will flick them up briefly in case anybody wants to. I know people like to capture a picture of them and get a chance to look at them again later. But you can see there that our broad approach to the universal service is to make sure we know what great practice looks like, to make sure we can identify those great practitioners, agree the outcomes we're looking for, and then use analysis, insight, guidance, and CPD to support delivery. And here we have a little bit more on those 4 national priorities and how they link to the government's opportunity mission. So I'll just leave that up for a second and hope that's useful. And then I have got one final slide, which just was an exemplar of the work we've been doing on attendance. So you can see some quotes there from colleagues who joined the attendance conferences. I hope they're useful. And I mean, there's a fabulous quote there from the West Midlands. You know, this is honestly the best CPD I've had. I've come away with 10 pages of ideas, and I can't wait to get home and start formulating a plan for moving forward. And that's the sort of thing we're looking for, that real sense that through our Universal Rise offer, we can leave you, professionals, volunteers who work in the system, with ideas that you can take back and use to really start to impact on these key priorities straight away. So I thought it was helpful just to share that. It gives a little bit of a sense of the purpose we are aiming for in our approach. So I'm going to leave it there and to make sure I leave a few minutes for questions. But I just wanted to finish with a little bit of a sort of a message to you all and to those that you can influence and those you talk to. This model, this RISE model for improvement, relies fundamentally on everybody leaning in. It relies on a willingness to share the sort of public good of best practice, to share the brilliant strategy that you have in your school, in your trust, in your local authority area, to share the capacity that you have to join together in achieving, whether it be the targeted intervention or the universal service. And that asks to lean in is both as a recipient, being open to and welcoming of, whether that be our attendance conferences that have demonstrated the benefit of coming together and hearing great practice from others, or whether it be as a recipient of a targeted RISE package, or whether it be as a provider, somebody sharing brilliant work that you're doing and joining us at the conference as a speaker, joining a network, or whether it be providing capacity through being a high-quality organisation supporting others. But that overall message is one of, please lean in. Whether you're a governor, whether you're a school professional, whatever role you play, RISE is going to be most successful if we all work on it together and if we all lean in with our capacity, with our intent, and with the generosity of the work that we do. So that's my last message, really. Whether it be a universal service, whether it be the targeted service, we will continue this implementation through this coming period, but we'll be relying absolutely on your engagement, your participation, your willingness to be part of a sector-led approach to improving standards for all pupils and breaking down the barriers to opportunity. So I'm going to leave it there, but there's 6 minutes. This clock is ticking relentlessly in front of me for me to take any questions. So happy to answer any questions that anyone may have. Now, how do I hear your question? Is there a microphone heading your way? It is. Should we go this one here? Sorry, this one. That sounded a bit rude, didn't it? Goodness me. Hello.
Am I on? Yes. So, Abby Atkins, Bath and Wells, Matt. Just a question really about how the supporting organisations will be identified. So you talked about report cards, but we know that they're not in use yet. And also, we've got 45 schools in our MAT. We might think we're doing something really well. How can we volunteer our services to be part of that.
Brilliant. I'm really pleased you've asked particularly the first part of that question is very important. Question, I don't know if you all heard it, how do we identify those high quality organisations to provide support? So, I mean, we always start in all the processes we engage in, we use a broad range of information. We look at data, you'd expect us to do that. We look at inspection outcomes and understand where the best of, the sort of, best evidence of provision is. We also use our intelligence on capacity, because as well as being good performers, we need organisations with capacity. So, and we have engagement, whether that be with a trust through our trust relationship managers, or whether it be with a local authority, we engage to understand capacity as well. And then we're also looking for particular specialism. So again, that will be drawing on sort of local knowledge that we have. So it's a combination of the sort of empirical data that comes from outcomes, of the outcomes we see in Ofsted inspections, but also from our local knowledge and understanding. And I would really encourage you, Bath and Wells down in the southwest, Lucy Livings is your regional director. I'm sure you know Lucy. Be really good for you to engage directly, with the team under Lucy or with Lucy herself. And I'd say that to anybody. Know who your regional director is and get engaged. You've got 45, did you say 45 schools? Some of that expertise, maybe in small schools or faith schools or whatever it might be, will be really important for us to draw into the system as a whole. So please make contact with your regional team, particularly if you feel you've got something to tell us about your capacity, which isn't always as we can't see all of that in the data. They're really helpful to hear from you as well. But certainly we'll be using that process we use in all of our decision making of drawing together the data and evidence that we have available. Hope that's helpful. Now I saw a hand over there, gentleman at the back corner there.
Sorry, never knowingly quiet. So I'm really interested in the accountability part of this, because what you haven't talked about is the school accountability framework, which obviously has quite significant consequences for stuck schools. And what we've got is a position where you've held all accountability at school level, and within the school accountability framework, it's all at trust and school level. And yet you're putting funding in through advisors and supporting organisations, and there's no accountability framework or sense that actually they will be held to account at any point for the impact of the money spent and the supposed impact they can have. And also, there doesn't appear to be a way, I'm sure lots of the support will be brilliant, but if that support isn't great, how does that get fed back into the system that's working there? And I suppose the last piece then is, if you have worked really closely with your RISE advisor, but you, as a stuck school, you don't get to the good at your next inspection, what have you, how will that then be framed in any decisions made by regional directors?
Okay, so thank you very much. I mean, really important topic. So the starting principle for this has been, and the Secretary of State's been really important for her, is that the accountability for improvement rests with the current responsible body throughout this process. So whether that be the local authority or whether it be the Academy Trust. So the current responsible body is accountable for the improvement. The provision of support, obviously, if it's funded and if we are contracting, or if the school and the responsible body are contracting with an organisation, then our job is to make sure delivery is happening. But it's the responsible body that's got to make sure that that is brought to bear on improvement in the school. It's a provision, a funded provision of support. And those responsible bodies, whether they be local authorities or academy trusts, are held to account as they are now. We have an individual inspection process for individual institutions. It's a statutory process. It goes on, as we know. Ofsted has been consulting. Obviously, the consultation closed recently on that approach, but the inspection framework continues, and those responsible bodies remain accountable through that institutional level inspection, just as we do at the moment. I think the last bit, engaging with the RISE advisor, the work's been going well. The RISE advisor's job is not to deliver the improvement. The RISE advisor's job is to engage in that matching process, making sure we've identified the right areas that need support and making sure delivery is happening. And certainly the content of delivery, if you like, and the responsibility for making sure that bites, if I can put it that way, absolutely rests with the responsible body. Obviously, as a regional director making decisions, this is not a sort of structural process. This is a process of providing support, so it's not linked directly to a particular decision. Obviously, you'll have read our consultation from the same period as Ofsted's, and we are going through the process of considering the responses we've had, and will respond in due course on that more specific question around stuck schools and particular aspects of that. But as a broad framework, it remains responsible body owns the improvement journey, and this is a process of providing support packages to enable that to be accelerated to achieve better outcomes. I think I'm out of time. So, thank you very much. I hope that's been helpful. I hope the content has been useful. Please don't hesitate to get in touch with your regional teams for any further information. Thank you all.